There are places in every city that feel like they belong to another world. Not because they are hidden, but because they are present and still somehow unanswered. This stretch of West Bonanza Road sits in plain view. Cars pass it, people live near it, business happens around it. And yet, the first thing you notice is not activity. It is defense. Bars on windows, layered gates, camera systems, solar battery rigs mounted where most neighborhoods would place porch lights. At one property in particular, the fencing is not just a boundary, it is a message. Barbed wire along the street-facing perimeter, then a second barrier, razor wire, at a deeper interior gate that appears to connect two structures on the same property. This is not a conclusion, it is an observation. But it raises the question this entire story is built around. Why would a residential area need to look like this? This story did not begin with public records. It began with unverified claims. Over time, there were private tips and online chatter alleging that a child trafficking operation may exist in this general area. The sources of those claims are unknown. There is no public confirmation from law enforcement. There is no publicly filed criminal case identifying this address. To be clear, those allegations are not evidence, and repeating them as fact would be irresponsible. But claims like these often attach themselves to locations where visibility is low, ownership is unclear, and explanations are absent. So the purpose of this investigation is not to validate a rumor. It is to document what can be verified and identify what remains unanswered. That means we start where facts start, with the land. The anchor point is a single address, 1920 West Bonanza Road. From street level, it presents as fortified. A primary gate off Bonanza Road, barbed wire above it. Then a second interior gate with razor wire, positioned between buildings. You can film this from public right-of-way. You can photograph it without trespassing. You can document it without inventing anything. The question is not whether the fencing exists. The question is why it exists in this concentration, and why it appears in a pattern across multiple parcels. The first major finding from public record research is that the property does not stand alone. Multiple parcels in the area appear to be owned by the same entity. One name repeats, DFA LLC. This matters because isolated ownership can be coincidence, but repeated ownership across nearby parcels becomes something else. It becomes a footprint, and a footprint, even without knowing its purpose, can be measured. A second pattern emerges through physical observation. Several homes in this cluster appear minimally occupied, heavily secured, or functionally closed off. Some rear boundaries appear modified in a way that makes multiple yards feel connected. Bars cover windows. Cameras appear on multiple structures. On their own, these features can mean many things. A high crime area, past break-ins, a property owner who does not trust the street. But the density and repetition changes the tone. When defensive architecture becomes the dominant architecture, it stops feeling personal. It starts feeling operational. That is not an accusation. It is a prompt for further questions. During the research, another detail surfaced. A nearby property reportedly contains multiple shipping containers. And separately, a connection was noted by community sources between an owner and a family history involving funeral homes and death care services. We have to handle this carefully. Experience in funeral services is lawful and common. Shipping containers are used for storage every day. But when an area already raises questions, unusual features become relevant not as proof, but as context. They are part of why residents are unsettled. As the map expanded, another parcel surfaced that materially deepened the pattern. Parcel number 13928302034. The site address is 1722 West Bonanza Road. Public records list the owner as DFA LLC. Unlike the residential appearing properties nearby, this parcel is associated with a major trucking operation. Large commercial vehicles, open industrial space, heavy logistical use. What makes the site notable is not the trucking activity itself. It is the perimeter. Along the edge of the property, a continuous wall of shipping containers has been arranged to form a physical barrier. From above, the containers do not appear randomly stacked. They are positioned deliberately, creating long corridors and enclosed boundaries. In several places, there are visible openings between the container walls. These openings appear to allow controlled movement between the trucking yard and adjacent interior spaces that connect back toward the orchard corridor. The configuration creates a semi-enclosed zone with large interior gaps shielded from street-level visibility by the container walls. Shipping containers are commonly used for storage, security, and logistics in industrial operations. There is nothing inherently unusual about their presence. What draws attention here is their placement. Rather than being grouped solely around loading areas or docks, the containers function as a perimeter system, visually separating interior space from the surrounding neighborhood while maintaining internal access. This parcel sits directly within the same Orchard and Bonanza geography as previously identified DFA LLC properties, further linking the corridor together. Again, this does not establish intent, but it reinforces a recurring theme across multiple parcels. Controlled boundaries, inward-facing layouts, limited visibility from public right-of-way. Each element on its own is explainable. Together, they form a pattern that continues to invite questions. With these parcels added, DFA LLC appears repeatedly across non-contiguous but aligned locations. The documented footprint now includes 715 Clarkway Drive, 812 Clarkway Drive, 1811 West Washington Avenue, 2100 West Bonanza Road. That is not random. It is a corridor scale footprint. And corridor footprints are how long-term development strategies start. Quietly, incrementally, with entities that do not explain themselves. Then something else becomes visible. Geometry. When two specific parcels are viewed together, a clear spatial relationship emerges. Parcel number 1, 3928302032. Site address, 1811 West Washington Avenue. Owned by DFA LLC and directly connected. Parcel number 1, 3928302012. Site address 812 Clarkway Drive. Also owned by DFA LLC. These parcels are not merely adjacent. They are arranged in a way that creates a shared interior open space at their center. In land use planning, inward-oriented geometry is commonly associated with campus-style developments, phased construction projects, restricted access facilities, institutional or contemplative land uses. In some cases, similar geometry is used in memorial parks or cemetery campuses, where radial or spiral circulation allows controlled expansion and limited visibility from surrounding streets. Important clarification. There is no public filing, permit, or zoning application that confirms a cemetery or memorial park is planned at these parcels. This is spatial pattern analysis, not a declaration of intent, but it is a pattern that raises legitimate questions. Separate from the Clarkway and Washington parcels, but relevant to the broader pattern, are two additional properties near the highway corridor. Parcel number 1, 3928801002. Site address 1415 West Bonanza Road. Owned by DFA LLC. And nearby, parcel number 1, 3928401033. Site address 1505 West Bonanza Road. Also owned by DFA LLC. These parcels sit closest to the primary highway entrance and exit serving this area. On a highway support pillar, adjacent to this entrance and exit, a spiral-like design is visible. The design is part of public infrastructure. It is not located on private property. It may be decorative, structural, or purely aesthetic. The symbol does not belong to the parcels themselves. What draws attention is proximity. The same ownership holds the parcels closest to the highway access point where the design appears. That fact alone does not establish meaning. Spiral imagery has been interpreted in many ways online, often inaccurately and without evidence. There is no law enforcement confirmation linking this infrastructure design, these parcels, or this ownership to criminal activity. No public agency has identified this symbol as having illicit meaning. This documentary does not assign one. So why include it at all? Because investigative work does not begin with conclusions. It begins with recognizing repetition, Repeated ownership across parcels that control access points. Repeated inward-facing land design rather than outward frontage. Repeated absence of public explanation. And, in this case, repeated visual motifs that have been assigned meaning elsewhere. In some law enforcement training materials, academic discussions, and child protection advocacy literature, a blue spiral symbol has been referenced as one of several historically alleged identifiers used in online abuse communities. That association is not universal, not definitive, and remains heavily debated. There is no law enforcement confirmation connecting that interpretation to these parcels. No agency has identified this location, this ownership, or this infrastructure as having criminal significance. This documentary does not claim that it does. But when a symbol has been publicly discussed in serious contexts, its appearance near sites already defined by concentrated ownership and restricted access becomes part of the observational record. Not as evidence, as context. Each element on its own has an ordinary explanation. Infrastructure design, landscaping choices, coincidence. Together they do not suggest wrongdoing. They suggest coordination. And coordinated land use, especially in historically impacted neighborhoods, warrants transparency. Not because something is proven, but because unanswered questions tend to grow louder the longer they go unaddressed. Any of the following would provide clarity. Site or landscape plans explaining the interior geometry, phase development filings connecting the Clarkway and Washington parcels, transportation design documentation for the highway pillar, planning commission records, referencing multiple APNs together, a statement from DFA LLC explaining long-term land use intent. Without documentation, the public is left with patterns but no answers. In the same broader geography, there is also proximity to funeral-related uses. A funeral chapel operating on West Bonanza Road, and parcels tied to individuals or entities reportedly associated with funeral and death care services. Repetition of adjacency does not prove affiliation, but in planning analysis, patterns that repeat across multiple parcels can indicate a long-range land use strategy. And when land is assembled quietly through LLCs, the public often learns what it was for only after decisions are already in motion. This brings us back to the beginning, the unverified claim, the anonymous tip. It is important to say again, there is no public record confirming criminal activity at these addresses. There is no official statement identifying this location as a trafficking site. And this documentary is not making that claim. But when a neighborhood sees fortified properties, concentrated ownership, inward-facing parcels, and silence, rumors become predictable. Silence feeds speculation. And speculation, left unchecked, can damage communities whether it is true or false. The solution is not to ignore the questions. The solution is to answer them. With documents, with public notice, with accountable transparency. There is another land relationship in this corridor that warrants careful attention. Adjacent to Camino al Cielo Funeral Chapel sits a parcel used for raw material holding. Public records show that this parcel is owned by Jada Holdings, LLC, the same entity previously identified in the broader land pattern connected to DFA LLC Holdings. The proximity is exact. The properties are not nearby. They are adjacent. The raw material site appears to store bulk industrial materials. Materials consistent with aggregates used in construction, cement production, or related industrial processes. There is nothing unlawful about this. Raw material yards operate throughout Clark County. Funeral chapels operate lawfully and transparently. Shared geography alone does not imply coordination. But adjacency matters when uses intersect in ways that are not commonly seen. In environmental and industrial regulation, certain combinations of land use trigger additional oversight. Raw material processing sites are regulated because bulk materials can obscure contents, complicate inspection, and require strict chain of custody controls for what enters and leaves a site. Funeral and crematory operations are regulated because of their handling of human remains and byproducts. There is no public record indicating improper handling, concealment, or misuse at either location. None. But the combination raises a procedural question. To be clear, this documentary is not alleging that remains are being hidden, mixed, or concealed within raw materials. there is no evidence presented that such activity has occurred. The question is more basic. What oversight mechanisms exist when funeral services and raw material operations sit side by side under related ownership? And are those mechanisms documented and transparent? In unrelated cases across the country, law enforcement and regulators have noted that bulk materials such as concrete aggregate, soil, or cement require special scrutiny precisely because of their opacity. Not because they are commonly abused, but because if abuse ever occurred, it would be difficult to detect without strong controls. That is why environmental reporting, waste manifests, and material origin records exist. The presence of those records is what separates speculation from fact. Any of the following would immediately resolve concerns: environmental permits and material manifests for the raw material site, inspection reports from INDEP or Clark County, waste handling and disposal records, crematory output documentation, if applicable, chain of custody procedures for materials entering and leaving the site. These records either exist and confirm compliance, or they do not. And if they exist, transparency benefits everyone involved. So why include this at all? Because investigative journalism does not accuse, it contextualizes. Repeated ownership, unusual adjacency, industrial uses that depend on documentation rather than visibility. None of this proves misconduct, but all of it justifies public interest questions, especially in communities that have historically borne the burden of low visibility land uses without adequate explanation. This documentary did not set out to prove a crime. It set out to follow what is visible: public records, land ownership, geometry, adjacency, and silence. What emerged was not a single smoking gun, but a pattern of concentrated ownership across multiple parcels, a pattern of inward-facing design and controlled access, a pattern of industrial and institutional land uses placed side by side, with little public explanation. Patterns are not proof, but they are signals. And in cities like Las Vegas, signals matter because land use decisions shape neighborhoods long before residents are ever informed. Nothing shown here establishes criminal intent. Nothing shown here confirms wrongdoing. But what is shown clearly establishes one thing: questions exist. And when questions exist, transparency is not a threat. It is a responsibility. If the land use is lawful, the records should confirm it. If the design is coincidental, the plans should explain it. If the ownership is unrelated, documentation should clarify it. Sunlight does not accuse, it reassures. Because communities do not ask for secrets, they ask for answers. And in the absence of answers, speculation fills the space left behind. This story does not end with conclusions. It ends with an invitation to release the documents, to explain the intent, to allow the public to see what has already been built around them. Because trust is not demanded, it is earned.